The first shout came sharp and cold across the lake. "Step out of that tent right now, or I'll shoot." The voice echoed against the water, mixing with the gentle slap of waves against the shore. My hand hovered over the radio scanner. Steady, calm. They thought I was cornered. They thought I was trapped. What they didn't know was that I had been waiting for this moment. My name is Ethan Cole, and I'd come back to my family's land after 10 long years working as a 911 dispatcher in the city. 15 acres of lakefront property, my inheritance, my responsibility, my father's legacy. For decades, this place had been the heart of our annual fishing festival, a tradition started by my grandfather and carried on until my father's death. This year, it was my turn to keep it alive. But the neighborhood HOA had other plans. The Lakeside Meadows Homeowners Association, with their rows of identical luxury houses and their obsession with control, had decided that my family's lake was theirs now. And at the center of their crusade stood Cheryl Montague, a woman who mistook her oversized mansion and bloated ego for authority. She stormed down to the lake with her board members in tow, clipboard in hand, ponytail pulled so tight it looked like it might snap her face in two. "You need to pack up and leave immediately," she announced, voice brimming with arrogance. "This lake is under HOA jurisdiction. Camping, gatherings, festivals, it all violates community standards." I stood slowly, brushing dirt from my jeans, measuring my words the way I used to with hostile callers back at dispatch. "With respect, this is private property. My family has owned it for over 40 years. You have no jurisdiction here." Her face darkened. She wasn't used to being challenged. "That's where you're wrong, Mr. Cole. We have the paperwork to prove otherwise. You're trespassing." I glanced at her folder, betting it was stuffed with fabrications. "Then let's see it." The tension in the air was palpable. Cheryl's confidence had dissolved into something akin to panic, her eyes darting from the documents to me, then back to the officers. Chief Webb glanced at the papers, nodding slowly as he flipped through them. The young officer scribbled furiously in his notepad, but even he could see the weight of the evidence. Cheryl's mouth opened, but no words came out. She was scrambling, trying to piece together a defense, but it was clear. She had underestimated me, and this was no longer just a property dispute. This was about justice. I turned to the officer, my voice steady but firm. "The land's ownership is clear. There's no HOA authority here, and those recordings will speak for themselves, Chief." I watched as Cheryl fumbled with her phone, now realizing that her bluff had been called, and she was no longer the one in control. The festival would continue. "And here," I tapped a laminated sheet, "is the conservation easement filed in 1987, protected land, legally out of HOA control." The crowd that had gathered murmured. Cheryl went pale. And then Ruby Sinclair, a retired court clerk who had been watching quietly, stepped forward. Her voice cut like a blade. "These documents are legitimate. I filed them myself. The HOA's claims are fraudulent." The ground shifted under Cheryl's feet. For the first time, she looked like prey instead of predator. But fate wasn't done with her yet. As Webb's flashlight swept across the lake, its beams snagged something metallic beneath the water. Support beams, planking, electrical conduits, an entire hidden structure anchored just beneath the surface. Officer Reed waded in, her light cutting through the water. "This isn't a dock," she called. "It's a permanent platform, illegal construction." And then Jake Thompson arrived, old friend, now reporter, camera in hand, lens focused. "Perfect timing," he muttered as his equipment caught everything. The live stream I'd started spread like wildfire. Within minutes, hundreds of eyes were on us, watching in real time as corruption unraveled. When Reed pulled waterproof bags from the structure, the truth poured out. Fraudulent permits signed by Cheryl herself, forged county approvals, HOA funds siphoned into shell companies. Jake's camera captured her face when confronted with video evidence of her directing construction only weeks earlier. Still, the worst was yet to come. Hidden deeper in the structure was a container, cash stacked in bundles, receipts detailing bribes to county officials, doctored permits, photographs of inspectors pocketing envelopes. Federal-level evidence. Webb's jaw tightened as he radioed for backup. Cheryl's board shifted nervously, whispering excuses. And then the final nail. A database check revealed Cheryl's true past. An outstanding warrant for real estate fraud, a fugitive who had vanished a decade earlier. Ruby's sharp memory connected the dots. The scam had targeted families like mine. My father's death, his medical debts, the vultures who circled in his last months, it all clicked. Cheryl had been there. She had tried to bleed him dry, to steal the land even as he lay dying. Rage burned through me, steady but cold. My father had resisted, even under crushing pressure, and now here she stood, exposed. Jake's footage played one last clip. Cheryl on the phone, snarling Makshara. The coal property will be mine by the end of the year, one way or another. The federal agents moved in, but instead of surrendering, Cheryl did something so absurd it would have been laughable if the night hadn't been soaked in betrayal. She bolted into the water, thrashing toward the far shore in her designer clothes. Seconds later, she was floundering, choking, clinging to the very beams of her illegal platform. "I can't swim," she screamed, voice cracking with panic. The irony was delicious. The lake she had tried to steal held her captive. Reed waded out, dragging her back to shore, where she was cuffed, dripping, humiliated. The crowd erupted, the live stream flooded with laughter and outrage. For the first time in years, justice didn't crawl. It sprinted. That night lit a fuse. Investigations spread across counties. Dozens of officials fell. Millions in stolen funds recovered. Cheryl pled guilty to fraud, racketeering, environmental crimes. 3 years in federal prison, millions in restitution. The mighty queen of Lakeside Meadows reduced to a cautionary tale. 6 months later, I stood again at the edge of the lake. The illegal platform was gone, torn down by court order. The water was clear, the land safe under reinforced protections. The fishing festival returned, bigger than ever. Not just a family tradition now, but a symbol of resistance. Thousands came. Families, neighbors, people who had watched the stream and seen corruption collapse live. Ruby was elected head of a new HOA, transparent and accountable. Marcus Webb was promoted sheriff. Reed joined a state task force rooting out corruption. Jake's documentary spread our story across the region. As I watched children cast lines into the water where my grandfather once taught me, I thought of my father. In his final months, he'd carried the weight of false debts, forged notices, intimidation meant to break him. But he hadn't broken. He never signed away our legacy. He had fought, even dying, to keep this land ours. And now, standing on solid ground, I understood what he had left me. Not just acres of water and trees, but a lesson. Never surrender what is rightfully yours, no matter how powerful the enemy seems. The lake was still. The crowd behind me laughed, cheered, celebrated. I felt the quiet satisfaction of knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, truth wins. And when it does, it drowns every lie.